A very good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 5 of European Ocean Days. I'm actually feeling a little bit sad because this is the last day, isn't it? And we've had so many great connections made, so much enthusiasm, so much passion. A little bit sad, but also a lot of joy because of all of those connections made. And lots of great discussions. So thank you very much for that as well. And the networking, I've seen so much networking going on as well. I said at the beginning of the week that we are passengers in my ship. I'm the skipper, I'm the captain. I've learned a lot this week, so I think in a week I can actually take you further. We can go to a different port of call. We've had some great discussions talking about blue careers, knowledge for ocean health, science matters. One of the key messages coming out. We've talked about maritime security, that was yesterday. Also diplomacy. We talked about Vision 2040 as well. And we talked about how we can remain competitive also when it comes to sustainability in the blue sector. Today, our port of call for you, dear passengers, we are going to be looking at coastal communities, which makes sense, so you have a chance to get off my boat and take a look around the coastal areas. So towards an EU strategy for coastal communities, that's our focus today. Of course, this came up in the European Ocean Pact, didn't it? This need for having a specific strategy for coastal communities. And so the European Commission looking at adopting this comprehensive strategy for coastal communities. And also, don't forget, a lot of people talk about the island communities. And so there will be a separate strategy for islands, and that's being put together and hopefully jointly adopted by the middle of this year. So let's have a scene setter, if you like, for this topic of coastal communities before our panel today. And I'd like to call to the stage Shalina Vicheva, Director General at DG Mare, to set the scene for us. Welcome. A warm round of applause for Shalina.
Thank you very much, famous Seamus. We are really happy to have you with us, and indeed, it might feel a kind of a sadness that we are having the last day of our Ocean Week, but we know that we are going to gather again together next year, same time, and in the meantime, all the networking connections that have been established, of course, they will thrive. But I will start, because this is my last speech in the Ocean Week. I would start by saying that this edition of the Ocean Week was the first one that is led and that follows the approach of the Ocean Pact. Because the Ocean Pact was adopted in June, so we were trying to preempt a bit the Ocean Pact, the priorities, and how we're going to go about it last time around, but this is the first time when this strategic framework has been launched already, has set the scene, has set the priorities, and now we are implementing it. So this Ocean Days edition is famous for this pioneering role in the implementation of the Ocean Pact. And we tried to put on the agenda, and I think that it's not that we have touched, but we have deeply deliberated on all the 6 pillars, not only to see how we have been implementing each and every one, but also to set the scene for our future ambitions. So we have, of course, covered the healthy ocean pillar, the science and knowledge one, the blue economy one, the maritime security one, the ocean diplomacy yesterday. We spoke at length. And today, for a dessert, we have one of the most important pillars that really cross-cuts the whole ambition of the Ocean Pact, the coastal communities one, and how we're going to put them in the center of the whole endeavor. So at the heart of the 6th pillar, which is not 6 in importance, but 6 in trying to treat it as a dessert in this Ocean Week, at the heart of this pillar is actually to tackle the unique challenges, but also to uplift the unique potential of the coastal communities across the European Union. The pillar recognizes that the objectives of the Ocean Pact whether it's driving a more competitive and sustainable blue economy, whether preserving the ocean health, whether enhancing maritime security, they are all about one thing: improving the livelihoods of our citizens. We must improve their access to quality jobs, sustain vibrant communities and traditions, including the fisheries communities, and ensure a healthy and secure coastal and marine environment. The Ocean Pact also acknowledges that the ambitions set out in the pact need the engagement of the local communities. And now I really know it from my own experience in Regio. Ownership by the local communities is absolutely essential. Ultimately, the success of the Ocean Pact depends always on the people who live and work in our coastal communities. They are the ones who will bring our ambitions to life. And our ambitions, we saw, even launched by our presidents, are high. So we need to live up to our ambitions, but that we can do only with the help and commitment of our coastal communities. They are the ones that will also benefit from everything that we do, from their own efforts. Because if we fail to deliver, we all will suffer the consequences. The Ocean Pact sets out a clear direction for us, and it's based on two key principles. First, it recognizes the enormous potential of the coastal communities as the backbone of the European sustainable and competitive blue economy. The coastal communities will enable and make thrive, whether we talk about maritime transport and industrial hubs that connect us to the rest of the world, that connects us to the suppliers of healthy and sustainable aquatic food, and the pioneers of blue technology innovation and marine renewable energy. Secondly, the Ocean Pact acknowledges that our coastal communities are facing significant challenges. They are at the front line of climate change, and thus they are vulnerable. They are vulnerable against the rising sea levels and more frequent extreme natural disasters. Many of them also struggle with a lack of diversification of economic activities, relying heavily on a single industry, for example. They often face accessibility issues and pressures from over-tourism. So there are challenges to tackle out there. The Ocean Pact, which aims to improve the life of EU citizens, recognizes that their ambitions need the engagement of local communities across the European Union for this endeavor. Their access to quality jobs and skilled workforce sustain vibrant communities which can ensure a healthy and secure coastal and marine environment. So, how will the European Union support these territories and their population? As part of the suite of initiatives of the Ocean Pact, the European Union, as you know, and it has been mentioned several times, will come forward with two communications dedicated to coastal communities and, as Seamus said, to the islands. The two initiatives are being developed hand in hand, and we're doing this in co-lead between DG Mare and DG Regio, but with all the other services with which we work together under the Ocean Pact. So there is full complementarity, and we are trying to explore the best synergies of the territorial approach which we apply and Regio apply in general. I'm pleased to say that we are on track to adopt them both before the summer under the current Cypriot presidency. So we will heavily rely on your feedback, which needs to be quick and at the same time thorough and deep diving in everything we need to consider from the reality of the coastal communities. The communication on coastal communities has 3 key objectives, and they will guide our work. But of course, if your feedback brings more, we will, of course, take into consideration every thought and every idea that comes from you. The first big chunk of elements to be developed further is coastal resilience. As I said, there are vulnerabilities out there. The dynamics show that they are ever increasing. So we need to take very serious measures and strategic approach of how we can make our coastal communities resilient. Coastal communities are vulnerable, as I've said, to impacts of climate change. By enhancing their resilience, we can help protect not only the lives and livelihoods of those living in these communities, but also the valuable ecosystems at sea, and also the overall sustainability of our EU society. And I have to link here this strategy with the climate law and the climate adaptation strategies that are in development. So we are talking all the time that we need a coherent framework for all ocean-related policies. Here the link is inevitable. Secondly, the diversification of the blue economy. But it's not only diversification, it's really the development of the new type, based on innovation, innovative marine economy that can bring the overall competitiveness of the European Union to a higher level. So it can be part of the top political agenda of the European Union for higher competitiveness. The contribution here can be huge. At the same time, apart from being innovative, being really open to the innovations that can bring competitiveness to a higher level, we need to admit that for too long, many of these territories, especially in rural and remote areas, have relied heavily on a limited number of sectors or industries. So diversification there is essential. By developing a more diverse blue economy in these areas, we can bring new opportunities for prosperity of the coastal communities. And it is not only the economic development in the current stage, it is really a point for generational renewal of these communities. In this vein, I will mention the third point that is absolutely essential when we talk about people and when we talk about communities. This is the social aspect. And the social aspect has to be brought high. It is, of course, based on the 2 other pillars, but we need a special focus on the social aspect. And here, of course, education and training come to play very, very strongly. When we talk about the coastal community strategy, on all 3 pillars that I mentioned, we need to work very closely with what has been just adopted, the industrial maritime strategy, the port strategy, because our cities, coastal cities, are port cities, the tourism strategy that will come to play in the second part of the year, but also, and very importantly, the rural areas strategies. We've been discussing with my colleague, the Director General for the Agriculture and Rural Development, that we need to find a very direct way of how the communities that are at the same time rural and coastal can take the benefits of the 2 aspects and thrive on the basis of the policies on both sides. And this is not only the right thing to do, to have this strategy and to take further these 3 pillars. This is essential, actually, to address the challenges that are confronted at the borderline of our seas. By prioritizing our next generation, we can ensure that the communities remain vibrant, inclusive, and prosperous for years. That's why I would once again highlight that a youth dialogue is to happen still this month, and we will be sourcing the ideas of the young generation of what they want to see as coastal areas and coastal communities for their lifetime and for the future. As I said in the first day, it is not that we have to develop our strategies for the youth, we have to develop them with the youth. So at the end, I would like to encourage you once again and invite you strongly to respond to the call for evidence on the strategy for coastal communities. Help us shape this initiative. It's really up to all of us. And I wish you all the best in this last discussion. We know that what is discussed last stays longest. So let's hope that these discussions will keep us going for the months to come. And next time, in March, well, when we gather together, we will be able to report already the first results of a very solid coastal community strategy for the European Union. Thank you very much for all the energy that you bring to this community, and I wish you all the best and sustaining the spirit of community and looking forward to the future. Thank you so much.
Charlina, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And maybe I can just give you a couple of dates, because for the coastal community submissions, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I have all this in my mind and the head, 23rd of March is the deadline for coastal communities submissions for evidence. And for the island strategy, 1st of April. 1st of April. Yes, so I've got the validation, I've got the nod there. So those are the dates. It's good to have those dates in mind. So we don't have very long. As Charlina said, you have to be quick, but you have to be thorough as well. So looking forward to all of that. So listen, what we'd like to do now is to also, set the scene a little bit further with help from somebody from the Conference of Peripheral Maritime Regions. And I'd like to call on Philippe Reinhard, the president of the CPMR. Welcome, warm round of applause.
Thank you, and Director General Charlina Vecheva, dear Charlina, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, today we meet at a turning point, but also I think we can look back on progression, because I was here last year and I had the opportunity to also meet with Seamus in Cork during European Maritime Days, and speaking from the CPMR, we see progression on the questions on both coastal communities and on oceans as such. And for the first time, the European Union is preparing a dedicated strategy for coastal communities. And for the members of the CPMR, the Conference of Peripheral and Maritime Regions, we are gathering more than 140 coastal regions. This is more than a standard policy initiative. It is a political signal. A signal that Europe is ready to look at its coast, not as its edges, but as its strategic heartlines. As you know, maritime regions and their coastal communities are exposed to climate change, rising sea levels, erosion, and extreme weather events. Many face demographic decline, pressure on housing, skills shortages, and fragile public services. They are on the front line of migration dynamics and growing security risks. And yet, these same regions and their coastal communities are engines of opportunities. They host our ports, our maritime industries, our fisheries, our aquaculture enterprises, our tourism ecosystems, and hundreds and millions of people with ambitions and dreams. They are at the forefront of offshore renewable energy and green hydrogen. They are key to Europe's connectivity, competitiveness, and strategic autonomy. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the question before us is simple. How do we turn pressure into potential? The CPMR believes that the answer lies first in one word: resilience. Indeed, resilience is not just about reacting to crisis. It is about anticipating change. It is about equipping coastal communities to shape their own future. That means moving beyond fragmented sectoral policies and building a coherent place-based European framework. That is one of the reasons why the CPMR was very happy to learn that the Commission wanted to develop a strategy for the coastal communities. And allow me now to share with you the key dimensions we advocate for to enhance the resilience of our coastal community. First is about connectivity, because for maritime regions and their coastal communities, connectivity is a lifeline. Ports, airports, and their hinterland links are essential for territorial continuity, for access to healthcare and education, for trade and jobs. An example of this is in the northern region of Portugal. Porto is a key port city that has greatly benefited from improved port infrastructure and better rail connection. The port of Leixões, located, pardon my Portuguese, located near Porto, has seen significant investments aimed at modernizing port facilities and increasing its capacity to handle freight, which is crucial to the region's economy. And the high-speed rail links connecting Porto to Lisbon and the wider European network has also enhanced the region's connectivity, making it easier for both goods and people to travel across the region and beyond. The direct impact of these investments on the coastal communities of the northern region has been substantial. Increased trade, more employment opportunities in the port and in the logistics sector, and better access to educational and healthcare services. These improvements have also contributed to the region's overall economic resilience, supporting the sustainability of its coastal communities. And a similar dynamic can be observed on Gotland, the island in the Baltic Sea where I happen to live. And as a maritime region and island in the Baltic Sea, Gotland depends heavily on reliable ferry and air connections with the mainland, particularly the Stockholm area. And investments in port infrastructure in Visby, which is the capital of Gotland, and in the stable transport links are not merely an economic upgrade. They are fundamental to ensuring access to healthcare, to education, goods, and labor market for the island's population and businesses. For Gotland, as for many European islands, connectivity is synonymous with territorial cohesion and equal opportunities. And if Europe is serious about cohesion, then integrated coastal connectivity must become a strategic priority across transport, industrial, and cohesion policies. Second is about industrial transformation. Many maritime regions remain economically vulnerable because of limited diversification. Yet coastal areas are ideal platforms for sustainable re-industrialization, clean energy production, advanced manufacturing, logistics, research, and innovation can coexist in powerful local ecosystem. And an excellent example of industrial transformation in Finland can be found in the Turku region. Turku has long been an industrial hub, but it has actively pursued green transformation in recent years. The region has become a leader in renewable energy development, especially in bioenergy, wind power, and marine technologies. Furthermore, Turku is home to companies developing wind turbine technologies and clean energy solutions. And the shift towards green innovation and sustainable industrial practices has not only helped diversify the regional economy, but also created new jobs and strengthened the resilience of the local communities against economic and environmental challenges. And regarding this specific point of the industrial transformation, allow me to point out that over the last year, the CPMR has advocated in favor of the concept of European industrial maritime valleys. These are place-based industrial clusters anchored in ports, coordinated by regional authorities, aligned with European industrial strategy. And we estimate that supporting the establishment of industrial maritime valleys in our regions represents a powerful tool to ensure sustainable development of our coastal communities. The third thing is about the sustainable blue economy. The sustainable blue economy, starting with fisheries and aquaculture, is vital to the coastal communities. And in Veneto, in Italy, the region's aquaculture industry has been growing through sustainable practices in the cultivation of fish and shellfish. Venetian fishermen, working together with local authorities, have developed a sustainable seafood model that balances environmental protection with community livelihoods. These efforts are improving the long-term viability of local fisheries and ensuring for opportunities for workers in the sector. The fourth topic is about climate adaptation and environmental regeneration. Coastal communities are on the front line of climate change. I just had the opportunity to discuss with my Swedish colleague about the erosion of the beaches, both in Skåne and on Gotland. But we can also be leaders in the solutions. In the Netherlands, the city of Rotterdam has implemented a range of climate adaptation strategies, including the restoration of wetlands and the construction of flood barriers that are integrated with nature-based solutions. These efforts has not only protected the city from the rising sea levels, but also created green jobs and enhanced biodiversity. And fifth, and I'm very happy that Shalina brought up people, because no strategy will succeed if young people continue to leave our coastal areas. Again, returning to Gotland, the University of Uppsala and their establishment on Gotland has played a very important role in linking students with the local industries, fostering innovation and providing educational pathways aligned with the green economy. This initiative ensures that younger generations stay engaged with local economic opportunities and helps to retain them within the region. We need investments in skills, vocational training, reskilling and lifelong learning, aligned with the green and digital transformation. Coastal communities must not only survive, but remain attractive places to live and work. And finally, governance and investment. A strategy of this scale cannot be delivered by member states alone. Regional and local authorities must be full partners in design, implementation, and monitoring. And furthermore, as discussion on the next MFF intensify, we must ensure stable, predictable, and long-term funding for maritime regions and their coastal communities. Infrastructure, climate adaptation, industrial innovation, and social services require continuity. A strategy without adequate financing will not deliver transformation on the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, at CPMR, we believe that the future strategy should represent the opportunity to move from fragmentation to integration, from short-term reaction to long-term vision. And this is why the CPMR stands ready to work hand in hand with the European Commission, with DG Mare, and with all the partners in this room in the weeks ahead of us, because this is a very important moment for the coastal communities. It is a very important political moment, and let us seize this with clarity, with ambition and with the conviction that Europe's coastal communities are at the center of our future. Thank you for your attention.
Philippe, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And one thing that struck me when I was talking to people throughout the week when it came to the issues, the concerns for people in the coastal communities is the fact that it's a very diverse, a broad range of concerns and topics. I was talking to a pediatrician who was raising concern about the impact of marine pollution on people living in coastal communities, for example. Also somebody mentioning a couple of times this week about cultural heritage in coastal community areas. So the list is long and wide, isn't it? Lots of different issues to tackle. Let's start our panel. Let's drill down into some of these issues, some of these concerns. I'd like to call to the stage, please, first of all, Hugo Sobral, who's the Deputy Director General for Program Implementation at DG Regio, which of course is the Directorate General for Regional and Urban Policy. Welcome to the stage. A warm round of applause, please. Feel free to take any seat on the stage. Thank you very much, Hugo. We also have Javier Grat, in his capacity at the European Economic and Social Committee, a member of the committee and also the rapporteur for the European Ocean Pact. Javier, welcome as well. Warm round of applause. And also with us, we have Mette Iversen from the Committee of Regions, the rapporteur for the European Ocean Pact, for her perspective as well. Mette, welcome. And also from Spain, Rosa Bernardo from the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation, National Coordinator and Chair of the WestMed and Atlantic Strategies. Rosa, welcome. Thanks very much. Thank you very much. So lots of issues coming up, and we heard in the keynote speeches just a small number of the questions, and of course the consultation's open, the deadline's coming up, coastal communities, also island strategies. What I'd like to do is to start with Hugo, maybe first of all. You're representing the European Commission. You're responsible for the implementation on the ground when it comes to a lot of the programs. I suppose, Hugo, the big question for a lot of people is how can we make use, the best use of European Union funding when it comes to a lot of this? So for the coastal communities, first question to you, what's your message to them when it comes to using European Union funds, that it's suitable, that it's making the best use of that?
Thank you very much. Good morning to all, and thanks for the invitation to DG Mare, and congratulations for the organization of the Ocean Days, and it's a pleasure to share the stage here with my other colleagues of the panel. I think your question about, it's not the $1 million question, it's the 2 trillion euros question, because that's the size of your budget, and that's what we need to be able to mobilize for, the different objectives and priorities that we have. There's no magic wand or, silver bullet when it comes to using the EU funds to the best for, coastal communities or coastal areas. There's often a mix of different strategies, of different recommendations that can be used to make the most of the EU funds. And the first one is precisely, starting from the beginning, is to develop a strategy. So the funds are a mean, they are not an end. The end is the strategy, is what you want to do in your territory. So the first thing is to develop a strategy with the priorities that you want to target, that you want to tackle. We've heard some of them, from blue economy to resilience to coastal adaptation, cultural heritage. So a strategy on what you want to do, what you want to achieve. Secondly, when preparing the strategy, another key ingredient is the inclusive and the participatory dimension. In cohesion policy, we often, not often, actually this is a mandatory requirement in our regulation. Things need to be done through following the partnership principle, meaning that authorities need to involve local and regional stakeholders. They need to involve socio-economic stakeholders, and we have here both the Committee of Regions and the Social and Economic Committee. They need to involve civil society, so this is one of the best ways to ensure that any strategy is long-term, is adapted to the real needs on the ground, and will actually be followed up and owned by the wider community. Then thirdly, I would say you need to assess what are the best funds, the best programs to deliver on your projects, on what you want to achieve. And here, often, it's a combination of funds and programs that are necessary. So it's not one single one. Coastal communities are not and should not be limited to the European Maritime and Fisheries Funds. It's a combination of funds. If you want to do, of course, aquaculture, you do the Maritime and Fisheries Fund. But if you want to do research, you need to apply to the Horizon calls. If you want to do infrastructure support to businesses, that's the European Regional Development Fund. If you want to do skills, that's the European Social Fund. So it's a combination of funds that is necessary. Then perhaps fourth recommendation would be work through consortia. And this actually follows a bit the partnership and the participatory dimension. So it's not just, should not be limited only to designing the strategy, should also be embedded in the projects themselves. So the project should involve business, should involve academia, research. So working through consortia and having actually a system approach and not a sector approach. It's also a good way of making sure that the projects and the funds are impactful. And perhaps my last recommendation would be don't limit yourself to your area, to your territory. Work in cooperation with others. In particular, for instance, when it comes to sea basins, look across, the sea basin, actually even cooperate across sea basins. We have in Interreg several programs that are actually sea basin led. So we have the Baltic, we have Atlantic, we have Mediterranean, we have the Black Sea. So engage in cooperation with other regions across your sea basin or even in other sea basins. So these are some of the recommendations of how to make the best use and how to be more impactful when it comes to your projects.
Okay, Hugo, thank you very much. And we'll come back to you in a moment, of course, about the island strategy as well, because that's also a major concern. We started with the question of funding deliberately, because I know that a lot of you, it's a big question for a lot of you, the question of funding, what's available. We can have great ideas, but we also want to ask that trillion-dollar question, as Hugo put it. And actually, one of the things we wanted to do also as part of this panel and also for the next panel is to get an idea of where you're coming from. And so we actually wanted to use Slido. It's been a feature of the week. And we want to get your voice into this discussion as well. So Hugo's laid down some of his messages, some of his advice for you. Let's work out where you're coming from. So we're going to use Slido. So let's get the QR code up on the screen. We know how it works. You flash the QR code. And then we have some questions for you. Just waiting for people in the control room just to get up the Slido QR code for us. And so we can look at some of these questions. It's all about getting a profile as well of our audience. Do we have that? Yes, it's coming. And all the phones go up. It's like in a Madonna concert. Everybody puts the phone up. Taking photos of me, I kind of think to myself, but no, you're actually flashing the QR code. So here's the first question. What type of stakeholder group are you representing? Are you from an NGO, local or regional authority, national, public sector, academia, or other? Ooh, other is the largest. Other is the largest. National, public sector, academia, local or regional authority, NGO. We kind of really want to know what the other is. We can imagine it's a very diverse range. As I said before, the issues and concerns are very diverse. Somebody was talking to me about, cultural heritage, for example, and wanting to know why we're not talking about that. And maybe that's an indication of the other. So we can imagine that it's a very diverse range of opinions for coastal strategies. Maybe during the coffee break, during the networking, the panelists will go to you and find out who you are, the others. Who's actually the others? Hands up, all of the others. Great. Maybe we can have a separate chapter in the coastal communities strategy called the others. Great. So it's good just for our panelists to know, and an equal setting there, 15% for the other groups. What country do you come from? Where are you joining us from today? You can put the country or the city. We also like to have the city. Spain, top of the list. Rosa will be very pleased with that. Italy as well, Finland, Angola. So we're not just talking about the European Union. We've had people from far afield as well. The Netherlands, Ireland, Cyprus, of course. European Maritime Day coming up in May in Cyprus. Latvia, Canary Islands, Greece, Madrid, Ostend. I'm not going to read through them all. Where is interpretation? Oh, this is a chance to actually send a message also to the moderator. Where's the interpreter? Actually, all of this is in English today, unfortunately, or fortunately for a lot of people. So there's no interpretation. I could do an interpretation into French if anybody wanted, but it will probably complicate matters. Germany as well, Barcelona, Brussels, Hungary, the UK, Galway. Great, good to see from Galway as well. New Zealand as well, I'm very pleased to see that. Hamburg as well. So great. So we have a wide cross-section. And today, Belgium, top of the list, it seems. What sea basin do you come from? What's your sea basin? And this is also very interesting for our for our panelists, just to get this profile of all of you. The Atlantic racing out in front, the North Sea, the Mediterranean, the others a bit further down. I want to join this group, actually, the others. I quite like that as a title, the others. The Black Sea, 6%. The Atlantic, top of the list. Very close, though, with the Mediterranean, and also very close with the North Sea. So first place, the Atlantic, but it's very close, isn't it? Basically a third for each, Atlantic, Mediterranean, and the North Sea. Also another question. Do you come from a coastal region, area, community? And we have a yes or a no. And this is very interesting for our second panel as well, also for this panel. Are you actually coming to us today from a coastal region? 75% yes. Great to see all of you in the room, filling up the auditorium on this last day, this last session, in fact. 28% no, but we have an interest. We have lots of questions about coastal communities. And just this last question, I think this is the last one. What do you expect from the EU strategy for coastal communities? We're looking for a word. This is a word cloud, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So you can put 2 or 3 words, 4 or 5 if you must. They will appear on the screen. Youth engagement. How do you see that this could improve the prosperity, the sustainable development of coastal territories? Listening. I love that one. Social inclusion. Communication. That's also one of my main topics. Level playing field. We saw that as a key word also in one of our panels yesterday, creating a level playing field. The focus on people, the human in the loop. Coastal communities, it's about people, isn't it? Nature, happiness. And I'm going to be looking through all of these just to make sure that no one goes off topic. Nobody goes AWOL, goes rogue with any kind of words. I don't see any reaction in the audience. Protecting, housing, vulnerable, hands-on, resilience, the real impact, youth engagement, sustainable blue economy, money, the workforce, reskilling, upskilling, the right to stay, sustainability. Disappointed not to see cultural heritage from the gentleman who was talking to me about that, but I don't think we have the phone out. But I put that in there. Long-term vision and funding also. Nature-based solutions. Maybe we can just leave this word cloud up on the screen, just in case we have other words added. And if anybody on the panel wants to speak to this as well. Let's go to Javier. Javier, maybe reacting to this also. Some of the, what would have you put as your keyword or keywords? Oh, it's disappeared from the screen, but that'll come back. Javier, what would you put in the middle of that screen?
Thank you very much, Seamus, and thank you very much to the European Commission for the invitation. I'm coming from a fishing town in the south of Spain called Sanlúcar de Barrameda in Cádiz, in Andalusia, a coastal region. And we are facing there the same interrelated economic, social, and environmental challenges that we are working on, we are seeing here today, and that we see in the European Economic and Social Committee. Only 3 weeks ago, we suffered these extreme climate issues, the 3 consecutive storms. And being there in Sanlúcar, you can see how the big river Guadalquivir came to the Atlantic with huge amount of sweet water, creating a lot of problems to the shells, to the different fishermen. Fishermen were there like 1.5 months without going fishing, aquaculture infrastructures, of course, agriculture, all these rural areas have suffered a lot. So that's why it's so important, the decisions that are taken here in the European Union to support all these coastal communities. Let me start saying, maybe not everybody knows what is the European Economic and Social Committee. We are the voice of organized civil society in Europe. We represent employers, workers, and what is called civil society organizations, including NGOs, consumers, agriculture sector, fishery sector, etc. We have 329 members, experts from different industry sectors, NGOs, that try to help the European Union institutions to have an optimized equality and the European Union policies and legislation. As you can imagine, we don't have yet an opinion on the coastal communities strategies. We will have it as soon as the communication is out, and we will work on it. But we have several reports, opinions, that are directly linked to this. We have the one on civil society's vision for an European Ocean Pact. We will talk later about that. We have another one towards a greater involvement of member states, regions, and civil society actors in the implementation in the long-term vision of the European Union rural areas, the role of youth in rural development. I saw there the importance of youth. We give huge importance to youth in the European Economic and Social Committee, the European Union long-term vision on rural areas, the European Algae Initiative, and some others. And to summarize, one of the main messages that we have identified in the committee, I could say that we are calling for a holistic, place-based approach combining social, economic, and environmental goals. We consider that it is essential for vibrant, resilient, rural and coastal communities. We need to involve, this is also one of the main messages I think there, involve local communities, civil society, and all governance levels in decision-making. Sometimes we see from the coastal communities that Brussels is too far. And we are there in our daily activities, and we see how the decisions are taken here in Brussels, and we see it very, very far. But the reality is that everything that is decided here, it's affecting us in our daily activity. So it's very important that from here, we, the different institutions, take into account what's going on in the coastal areas. We need to strengthen the rural proofing, ensure inclusive participation, and support community-led local development to tailor solutions to regional needs, with funding, of course. We need to attract and retain young people in rural and coastal areas. This is, I think, one of the main issues that we have. But we need, and it was mentioned before, we need quality education, we need digital skills, we need access to land and credit, meaningful participation, of course, in policy design. And as I mentioned before, youth engagement is crucial for these resilient and innovative communities. We need to promote new economic opportunities, and the algae production is one of them, or sustainable tourism, or bio-districts, and blue bioeconomy. So these sectors can create jobs, support food security, and regenerate ecosystems, especially in vulnerable regions. We need, and it was mentioned also before, we need to guarantee equal access to healthcare, education, digital connectivity, and transport. We need to increase, and this you have already heard that from me, we need to increase and simplify the European Union funding. MFAF, Horizon, Cohesion Fund, but thinking on the future, the financial framework. We need more money to support not only pilot projects, but also capacity building and integrated territorial strategies. And finally, use nature-based solutions, algae farming, sustainable land sea management to restore ecosystems, mitigate climate change, create green jobs, etc. We need to balance conservation with sustainable human activities.
Okay, Javier, now we are still very young men, both you and I, but it's true that I've heard this a lot during European Ocean Days. We need more young people. We need more passion, interest in maritime issues. Just briefly, what's top of your list? How can we do that? How can we actually get through to young people to make sure that they're engaged, that they're part of the process?
Well, I think first we need to provide them with a future career. They need to think that the activities in the coastal communities have future. They have good working conditions, they have good salaries, and that their activities are going to continue. We're talking about fishing, we're talking about aquaculture, we're talking about maritime transport, we're talking about bioeconomy, different activities are taking place there. We're talking about tourism. There are a lot of sectors in the blue economy that deserves the future. And the future, it starts here. starts from the European Union legislation, the regulations. So we need to take that into account to provide this future to our young people. If this happens, and the Vision 2040 is an opportunity, the strategy for coastal communities is an opportunity, all these strategies that the European Commission is working on and that the European Union in general will do are very important to do this. So we have to realize what are the real problems in our coastal communities and take action to provide this future to our people.
Okay, and we'll come back to you in a moment with regards to being the rapporteur for the European Ocean Pact. Matter, going to another region, you know, outside of Brussels, we can say. So we're talking about the south of Sweden. You're the Committee of Regions rapporteur for the European Ocean Pact. You also come from a coastal region in the south of Sweden. What are your expectations, if you had to add words to the word cloud, what are your expectations for the strategy?
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation of being here today. And I can start, even if I am on stage, I can start by revealing that I'm by no means an expert of ocean, but I am a regional politician. I would like to start a little bit to set the scene, my scene at home. And I live in the southernmost part of Sweden, Skåne region, and we have coast in three directions. On the west, we have the Sound Öresund till Denmark, and on the south and on the east, we have the South Baltic Sea. And this is a place where the sea is never abstract. It has a long time been the source of work and identity, but also now it's of growing uncertainty. And storm surges are stronger than when I was a child, and we have, in some part of the coast, we are challenged by severe beach erosion, where the sea literally swallows the beaches. And the Baltic Sea is also not feeling very well. Outside Skåne, we have large areas at the size of Denmark with dead bottoms, and the cod stock has collapsed completely. And we used to have a lot of lively fishing villages, but now the small-scale fishing is almost completely dead. Erased, sorry. Young people, they love their coastal communities, but yet many of them feel they must leave because they have to find stable jobs and the future perspective of affordable housing. And I wanted to begin with this personal reflection because it captures a bit of today's discussion, why it matters. Coastal communities across Europe are not marginal spaces. They are frontline territories of climate change, of environmental degradation, energy transition, food production, and territorial cohesion. And yet, too often, they are treated as policy afterthoughts. And to the direct question, my first expectation of this is coherence. EU supports reaches coastal areas through many channels. We have the cohesion policy, the common fishery policy, maritime and blue economy programs, rural development, climate energy funds. Each has a value, but on the ground they do not always add up to a coherent development pathways. Local authorities and small coastal communities struggle to navigate in this complexity, and they do not need more strategy, they need better alignment. The strategy for coastal communities must therefore strengthen the Ocean Pact as a strategic umbrella, connecting existing instruments, reducing fragmentation, and making EU action more readable, transparent, and usable to local level. And my second expectation would be a plant-based approach. There are no coastal regions that are the same. The Baltic Sea is not the Atlantic. A fish-independent archipelago is not a tourist-intensive Mediterranean coast. And regions and municipalities must be empowered to design solutions to fit their territorial realities. The principle must be fully embedded in cohesion, rural policies, as well as in coastal policy. And my third and last expectation is resilience with people at the center. Climate adaptation in coastal areas is not only about infrastructure and nature-based solutions. It is also about housing, about access to service, skills and jobs. And in many coastal towns, young families are priced out. Seasonal economies dominate and transport connections are fragile. A credible strategy must therefore address the social dimension of resilience, the right to stay, the right to work, and the right to live well in coastal territories.
Okay, Mette, thanks very much. And we saw right to stay coming up in the word cloud. We saw resilience, I think. We saw the social issues. So great. So people sharing your expectations. And we'll come back to you, Mette, a little bit later, because you were also the rapporteur for the European Ocean Pact. We'll come back for your thoughts on that. Let's go to Rosa in Spain. Of course, Spain, an EU member state that has two seas, actually. You have to deal with two different seas. You're representing Spain and the West Med. You're the current chair. From your point of view, what are the main challenges? When we talk about challenges, of course, this always throws up the word opportunities for me as well. What's on your mind when you're looking at the strategy?
Thank you so much, Seamus. Thank you, all of you, for attending this meeting and participating. And thank you, of course, to the DG Maritime for this invitation and this opportunity to talk about this. Well, yes, it is. We are lucky this year. Spain is holding in 2026 the presidency of both the Atlantic Strategy and the West Med Initiative. The West Med Initiative is a presidency with Tunisia this year. Our main goal is to turn this challenge into an opportunity to create synergies between these both sea-basin strategies, and therefore to achieve greater benefits for the coastal communities, of course. There are many expectations and needs that coastal communities have, but as a summary, I'd like to mention some of them. Regarding the coastal resilience and climate adaptation, coastal resilience and climate adaptation focus on developing a sustainable, decarbonized, and circular blue economy, and combat rising sea levels, erosion, and biodiversity loss. Key strategies include implementing nature-based solution as dune restoration or sea walls, upgrading port infrastructure for climate resilience also, and adopting integrated coastal zone management to protect vulnerable ecosystems. And regarding diversification and sustainable blue economy, this is crucial. Coastal community must move beyond the seasonal tourism. We need to coordinate action and to encourage sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, marine renewable energy, blue biotech, innovation, efficient and smart connectivity is essential for these communities. Also green ports, decarbonized shipping, and reliable connections for islands and these remote areas. And regarding the last group, blue skills and ocean literacy and generational renewal, there's a growing need of investment in blue skills, entrepreneurship, innovation hubs, quality service to counter the population and seasonal employment patterns. And we need to spread the ocean knowledge because this is essential to promote this strategy for coastal communities. The generational renewal, as it's been said, is a key challenge. It is obvious that without people, there's no coastal communities. There's no sense. Apart from specific actions, this challenge should be approached from any perspective. For example, the renovation and decarbonization of the fishing fleet can make this sector attractive for young people. And as a general comment, I would like to point out, and in addition to all these challenges, that we need a sufficient and proper funding, as it's been said also. So it has to be taken into account in the next MFF.
Okay, a nice segue to go back to Hugo when we talk about funding. But Hugo, and Rosa mentioned the island strategy as well. Can we say that there will be some kind of synergy between the coastal communities strategy and the island strategy? Will they be complementary? What do people in the audience need to know about the coming together, perhaps, of these two strategies?
Inevitably, there will have to be synergies. These two communications are sister communications, so they are connected. They have the same parents, and one parent is cohesion policy, the other parent is the Ocean Pact. So they are inevitably communicating vessels between the two. But they are also, and I would like probably to place them as part of a broader effort that we are doing to develop territorial strategies. So they are not the only ones that we are presenting these days. Actually, there's a third sister, which is the outermost regions communication. So we'll also have a specific strategy, a renewed strategy for outermost regions, who are also islands, but I mean have their own specificities. And this is part, as I've said, of a series of territorial strategies that we are coming up with. One was already adopted on cities, another one on eastern borders, and then these coming ones on islands, on coastal communities, on outermost regions. And at the end of the year, we'll actually have one encompassing horizontal one on the right to stay, which has been mentioned here, because the objective of all this is basically to highlight the challenges and the opportunities that exist in different territories around the European Union, and to call the attention to this, to give them visibility, to provide common frameworks, as you have done. But all these regions and territories are also very diverse in themselves. I mean, there's no... I mean, of course, there are commonalities, for instance, on coastal areas, but a coastal area, in Finland, it's different from, Barcelona, or different from Crete, the type of challenges. So there's a common framework, but there should be tailored implementation when it comes to the solutions that need to be found, for each of these different territories. So the first message then is that, yes, I mean, they are part of this wider approach of enhancing place-based dimension, place-based policies for the EU. Secondly, I mean, these strategies have not yet been drafted, so we've just launched the call for evidence, and we are now seeking to get comments from all of you and from all stakeholders to be able to develop them. So we are in this stage of consultation. But I think that the overall objectives are the same, and actually they very much match what was said by the president of the CPMR in his opening speech, by what I've heard also from this panel, and also from the results of the Slido. So I think there's an overall ambition of promoting competitiveness of these regions and making sure that they are not left behind. They can drive basically in the future economy. They can tackle basically the transitions that we are undergoing. An overall objective of promoting connectivity, which is a key issue for both islands and coastal areas, to support communities and empower communities, and promoting the right to stay. And I think this community-based and community-led, actually, initiatives, it's something that we will, I think both us working on the island strategy, our colleagues in DG Mare will want to promote. And I think there's also a message that we will certainly want to pass about the governance. The governance, about the need, indeed, again, and I reiterate this, to involve regional and local authorities in the preparation, in the implementation of these future, policies and projects that will, stem from this common framework that we are providing. I mean, synergies are inevitable, as I've said. If one thinks of the specific projects that we want to, promote at the end of the day, if one thinks of, for instance, connectivity again, logistics, this is about, maritime transport or aviation. This is about basically transport between the islands and coastal areas. Coastal areas are basically the gateways for these islands, the gateways for the mainland. Synergies are also inevitable because actually every island has a coastal area. Otherwise, I mean, it wouldn't be an island. So there are things that we'll be promoting which certainly are similar, contributing to the same objective. If one thinks also, for instance, of energy, of offshore, renewable energy, something that we would also like to, promote and see and develop in the future. I mean, this inevitably also then entails a grid, a connection which should be both to mainland but also to islands, because one of the problems of islands is energy, it's the dependence on external sources. So there are inevitable synergies which we'll be promoting, and again, I think this will be natural because these are sister communications and the parents get along well.
Okay, Hugo, thanks very much. Let's come back to Mata, because in your capacity as the rapporteur for the European Ocean Pact, your message to the European Commission, what should be included in the strategy from your point of view when you're looking at all of this? Oh, and we dropped that microphone, didn't we? So maybe we have to give you another microphone that works. Hopefully it's not broken. Sorry to the control room.
Was
Yes.
a real mic drop. The European Ocean Pact gives a clear compass, and the Committee of the Regions is proud to have contributed on its shaping. And building on it, I can see 5 essential elements. And first, the strong multi-level governance. Sea basins challenges often require multi-country solutions, including cooperation with non-EU countries. At the same time, ocean policies can only succeed if local and regional authorities are fully involved throughout the policy cycle. Coastal communities are not only stakeholders, they are co-implementers. And the strategy must institutionalize their role in design, implementation, and monitoring. Consultation is not enough. Partnership must be structural. And second, territorial cohesion as a guiding principle. The coastal regions are often caught between urban and rural policies without fully benefit from either. The strategy must explicitly link coastal development to territorial cohesion, ensuring that the remote island and sparsely populated coastal areas are not left behind in the green and digital transitions. And third, community-led development, bottom-up approaches works. Fisheries Local Action Group and similar initiatives have shown how local knowledge and trust can drive innovation. The strategy should strengthen and simplify support for such approaches, not replace them with the top-down solutions. And fourth, the coherence across EU funding and policies. I mentioned this already. Coherence of funds should be a key element of a new strategy. And fifth and last, a long-time vision linked to delivery. Coastal communities think in generations, not in programming periods. The strategy must be anchored in a long-time EU priority and linked to concrete implementation tools, including the next MFF. And if I can add, on the discussion on the next MFF are intensifying, and ambitions in strategy must match with ambition in budget.
Okay, Mata, so the long-term vision, your final message there.
Yeah.
We talked earlier in the week about the boy who climbs the mast, who's in the crow's nest, who's making sure that we're always looking much further ahead than where we are. Mata, thanks very much. Rosa, we know that with your sea basins, you already have strategies in place, initiatives at the regional level, looking at coastal communities. Tell us about how that will also build in. Can we take some of the work there and incorporate that into the overall strategy, the overall coastal community strategies? How will that work you've done contribute to this overall strategy?
So regarding this issue, the sea basin strategies establish a visible framework for action. A sea basin is the natural identity grouped in the geographical scope for the coastal communities. And therefore, the sea basin strategies are the first tool that the coastal communities identify for acting. Thus, the basin strategies are the starting point for implementing the strategy for the coastal communities. The strategy for coastal communities provides a general framework for these communities, but the basin strategies observe the specificity of each sea basin area. It's not the same, the coastal communities in the Mediterranean area or in the Black Sea area or in the Atlantic area. And at the same time, the transversality of the scope of the sea basin strategies makes them a perfect instrument to address all the challenges of the coastal communities. In addition, the sea basin strategies are the way of transmission of the model that the EU wants to lead. They are the show window of the actions carried out, giving access to other countries, to foreign countries. A very clear example is the WestMed initiative, because it involves 5 EU members plus 5 southern neighborhood countries. One of the WestMed objectives is to reduce the gap between North and South, and even between South and South. So this implies the convergence of the management models of coastal communities, of the blue economy at the end, and all the aspects that we have been discussing today. Consequently, the model established by the EU in this strategy for the coastal communities will be the model to be followed throughout the sea basin strategies, having this strategy a key role beyond the EU itself. Within the sea basin strategies, I would like to mention some of the activities being carried out as the WestMed working group on maritime spatial planning, and the working group on blue skills, and the Pillar 2 of the Atlantic strategy related also to blue skills and ocean literacy, which both aim to develop awareness and knowledge about the marine and coastal environment. Also, these working groups, or the other working groups associated with the pillars or axis of action of the Atlantic strategy, which carry out the activity, for example, for the adaptation of ports to the climate change, and the energy transition of fleets and ports. This is the Pillar 1. These are many other examples which are made by and participated by the members of the coastal community, so they are the protagonists. And the sea basin strategies play the role to facilitate and to promote this project and to facilitate the cooperation between the coastal communities and the countries.
Okay, Rosa, thanks very much. We started with Javier. Let's finish with Javier, because rapporteur also for the European Ocean Pact. What are you expecting, hoping to see in the overall strategy based on what you've seen on the ground at sea?
Before going into the details, I would like to tell you how proud I feel with the work that we have done at the European Economic and Social Committee, with the study group members, at the NAT section, because as you can imagine, in the European Economic and Social Committee, with so many different opinions, 329 members from different activities and interests, we always try to get a consensus position. In this case, we got almost unanimity, only one vote against. I'm always wondering who is that person who always votes against. I don't know yet, but it's something that happens.
Somebody in the room, and somebody who's here.
But I can tell you that we did a great job. And there was a first very powerful message, I think. we are calling for a pact, for a strategy in general that puts people and communities at the center. We have seen for too long that ocean governance in the European Union has been fragmented and technocratic. From the common fisheries policy to scattered blue economy initiatives, ambition has often been lost in translation between Brussels and the port. What I mentioned before, we see Brussels too far from the coastal communities. The committee, through a series of opinions, including those on sustainable fisheries, coastal resilience, and the future of the blue economy, has consistently called for a different approach, one that puts citizens, workers, companies, and ecosystems first. We think that this new strategy must go beyond a symbolic language. Our seas are warming, biodiversity is eroding, and illegal fishing continues to undercut sustainable operators. Fishers, once stewards of marine life, are squeezed between environmental targets and economical survival. Coastal communities face rising sea levels, as we have seen before, with shrinking budgets. These aren't abstract policy dilemmas. They are lived realities. So, at its core, we think that the strategy must be about restoring trust. This is also very important. Restoring trust. Trust between institutions and citizens, between environmental objectives and economic justice, between short-term growth and long-term survival. That's why the committee has advocated for inclusive governance that gives civil society, trade unions, youth, women, small and medium enterprises real power, not token consultations. And it has pushed to research investment, maritime skills development, a call for an action plan on blue foods, and the intergenerational renewal of fishing sector and other sectors in the blue economy. We also think that it's also time to stop treating the sea as a silo. Ocean policy cannot be detached from food systems, energy transition, climate mitigation, and social cohesion. What it is needed now is follow-through, inclusive governance, long-term investment, and policies that serve both people and the planet. So the Ocean Pact and the Coastal Strategy must prove it can deliver on that promise and really look for a balance between biodiversity conservation, sustainable use of natural resources, and food security.
Okay, Javier, thanks very much. There's so much more we could have talked about with the four of you. Rosa, I wanted to come back to you, but we're out of time. But, keep the conversation going. Feel free to approach some of our panelists to discuss some of these points. All of these voices are very important, feeding in to the consultation, feeding into the overall strategy. So thank you all very much. And after the coffee break, we will be drilling down further. We're talking about best practices, and also the challenges, more about the challenges when it comes to the coastal communities. A warm round of applause for our panel. Thank you very much. And we will see you after the coffee break. Thank you very much. Let's take our seats for the start of the session. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. So welcome back to our continued session on Towards an EU Strategy for Coastal Communities. Hopefully everybody had a strong cup of coffee, a little sweet as well, perhaps, a boost of energy for our conversation. Focusing now on good practices and challenges when it comes to coastal communities. I've had a lot of feedback on the others, interesting during the break, because lots of voices when it comes to all of this. Somebody approached me talking about fresh water, the fresh water, linking in with the sea strategies. So yes, it's a diverse range, isn't it? Lots of different voices. It's difficult to get all of the voices in on the panels, but you know, you're not forgotten. And also we're going to be having interaction with Slido to make sure that your keywords, your questions, your priorities are also on the screen with us for our panelists here today. What I'd like to now is call straight away to the stage our esteemed panelists. I'd like to start with Isabelle. Isabelle Perret, high-level expert in integrated maritime policy from France. And Isabelle, lessons from the French National Maritime and Coastline Strategy, one of the focuses. Isabelle, warm round of applause, please. And for someone who gets called Seamus and Seamouse all the time, the next people I'm going to call up, it's a real challenge for the pronunciation. I do have indications. I'm going to do my best. We have Marie-Poja Mökra, Ministerial Advisor from Finland, talking about the lessons learned from Finland's coastal strategy. How was I on the pronunciation? 50%. We'll have a little lesson afterwards. Marie, thank you very much. A warm round of applause for her. A little bit easier, Monica Veronesi-Birch from FameNet, of course, supporting DG Mare and the implementation of the community-led local development project. So thank you very much, Monica. Welcome. Warm round of applause. We also have from the European Investment Bank, Roberto Rando. Facile, easy to pronounce. Senior Climate Officer from the European Investment Bank. Thank you very much, Roberto. And a bit more of a challenge, but I got a pronunciation guide just before, but it's actually, you know, it's never useful, is it? Somebody tells you like 2 minutes before the session and then you forget straight away. But Egia Stapukovica. And I think that was not too bad. Deputy Head of VASAB, which is Vision and Strategies around the Baltic Sea. So welcome. And the Secretariat of the Baltic Sea Region Spatial Planning Initiative. So thank you very much to all of you on the stage with us today, drilling down into this key question about good practices and challenges. And I'm actually going to start with France, so Isabelle in France. And we want to talk to you about the lessons learned from the National Maritime and Coastline Strategy. What are the elements, Isabelle, when it comes to the strategy, your strategy? How can we make sure that this is going to contribute? And we talked about this in the last session as well when it came to Spain. How we can make sure this contributes to the coastal strategy at the EU level, Isabelle.
Thank you. Just to present in a few words first our national strategy for the sea and the coastline. It was adopted in 2024. It's a strategy for 2030 horizon. This is the, if I can say, the French vision of the European Ocean Pact for an integrated global planning for sea and coastline policies. So we have 4 priorities, 18 objectives. Among the 4 priorities, so we have contribution to carbon neutrality by 2050, and especially, of course, boosting marine renewable energy. Second one is the protection and restoration of biodiversity to reach the target of 30% of MPAs, of which 10% under strong protection. Third priority, and very important in relation with the coastal communities, is the equity, meaning to contribute to the well-being of coastal communities and maritime sector. And the last one is the development of competitive, resilient, and sovereign blue economy. And this national strategy, as such, does not define sectoral policies, but it encompasses all the policies in a global vision. And we develop the implementation of the national strategy at local and regional level with MSP documents. So what about the lessons? Because this is the second edition. Maybe three main elements. The first one is that the need to think about an integrated land-sea approach. It's quite obvious, but not very easy to implement. Second, it accelerates adapted funding for climate adaptation and development of blue economy. Climate adaptation is a growing issue of concern, more and more. And the third element is involve local actors for a just transition. And basically, regarding the priority of developing well-being for coastal communities, is make the life on the coastline pleasant, to develop attractiveness models for the actors. So we promote a sustainable ecological transition of territories and actors. I can name some concrete examples. For example, to promote coastal and maritime heritage, we have developed coastal path, sentier de la mer et du littoral, to allow, people walking along the sea, the coastline, to discover beautiful landscapes and maritime heritage. This is a very local project. For supporting ecological transition, also to promote local restoration and protection of marine ecosystem, such sea grasses, for example. And regarding economic projects, to support, for example, development of local project for marine renewable energy, for energy autonomy for islands, because our strategy covers not only coastal communities, but also islands and outermost regions. So this is very large strategy, and of course, I have some reference for interested people, and I can give the reference later. Thank you.
Okay, Isabel, thanks very much. Interesting you mentioned cultural heritage, because that's something that somebody talked to me about in one of the breaks, saying that we need to also include that, make sure that it's not forgotten when it comes to the strategy. So interesting to hear about that. The coastal walkways, I think, in many countries we're focusing on the beauty, etc. So the sharing of the nature. Isabel, thanks very much. I've got Marie written down here, and it's on the screen. It says Maris with an S. What's the correct one?
Without the I. So it's just Marie.
Marie, without the S, without the S on the end. So Marie.
No.
So great. We can see there that Finland has already implemented, it's deploying the National Finnish Strategy. And really this session also is about, learning the lessons. What do we take away from your strategy, the lessons learned, for the European Union to think about when they're looking at their strategy?
Thank you, Seamus. A good day for everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here, actually. After this panel, it takes 24 hours to reach home. So I live in the western coast of Finland, in the northernmost parts of EU, in the Gulf of Bothnia. So it's a pleasure to be here and share some insights from the Finnish coastal strategy. I have lots to say. I have to, and you ask for practical examples, so you will have them. And then maybe just first I want to underline that in Finland the coastal strategy that is done in a national level is done in close cooperation, this kind of coordinated and integrated process with the maritime spatial planning that is done in a regional level and is also closely related to the regional development. And there is a proper justification for that, I think that the coastal and marine environments are interdependent. We can't separate one from each other, and in maritime spatial planning we have to consider the land-sea interaction, and in Ocean Pact we have this source-to-sea approach. And I think it's about time to have this EU-level strategy for coastal communities, because we have to address the importance of coastal communities for the society at large. For example, Finland, if you take a 30-kilometer coastal zone, it's just 13% of the whole land area, but it hosts more than 50% of the Finnish population. And there are 60% of exports and more than 50% of jobs and so on. So it's very important for the society. And in Finland, as Hugo from DG Regio mentioned, is that the coastlines and how you define the coast differs between countries, and mentioned also Finland. And it's important to understand that our coastline is very scattered, and we have 48,000 islands and islets. And we also host the world's largest archipelago. And these islands are really close in proximity to the mainland, so we can't separate the mainland coastline from the islands. So when we have a coastal strategy, it adopts these both, so coastal areas and then the islands. And then we also have a permanent residence. 2.5% of our population lives in these archipelagos that are quite remote areas. And then, of course, in addition to humans, these are the biodiversity hotspots and very sensitive to any threats, as we all know. So 2 points from the process, what we have learned. I think that we all know that the sustainable integrated coastal zone management requires kind of holistic systems approach. There's no doubt about that. And then because there's interdependence between humans and nature, and they kind of together evolve through feedback loops and response mechanisms. And then these are very complex, nonlinear cause-to-effect mechanisms. And then because of that, in Finland, we consider that strategic planning is more about pointing out the direction for stakeholders and actions, not so much have an end state, kind of static end state, or even a kind of fixed strategic goal. But instead, we have these common shared principles between stakeholders that they're committed to. Like, for example, whatever actions they do, they always keep in mind the planetary triple crisis or the open and transparent collaboration and so on and so on. But I have to be honest, after listening to the Wednesday session on aquaculture, there was a mention that it's not enough to have visions, but you have to have the quantitative targets, and I actually agree with that, because it kind of goes well with the human mindset in a way, tick a box that we've done that, and it also helps you in monitoring and evaluation process. So that is a gap in a Finnish coastal strategy, I would like to say. And another thing about the process is the collaboration with the stakeholders, because that is what we did. The end product has to be relevant for them, and if you go to see our strategy, it's a very short and concise digital 10 key measures online. And we saw that because the implementation rests on stakeholders' shoulders, it means that we have to be very open and up-to-date in every communication what we have. And in Finland, one of these key measures was to establish a forum for best practices. And that is what we've done. We have this forum twice a year. It's open to anyone. We share ideas, what's happening, what projects are going on, what kind of new results we have, and where are the stakeholder networks, and who should communicate and collaborate with who. So this is about the process. Then 2 points about the content itself. Well, one thing I'm sure if it's mentioned yet, but is that the coastal communities, these coastal areas, are vital for society's security and safety. We, just half a year ago, we completed quite extensive scenario work that focused only on security and safety and security supply issues. And when you use those lenses, the security lenses, the situation, the alternative futures, they are not looking good. They are not. And then it means that the kind of resilience of the coastal areas and then supporting the resilience is the key here. This means that these individuals living in those remote areas, that is the case in many countries, not in all, but in many countries, in their everyday life, when they take a dog outside, you know, or they go boating. For example, Finland, we have 1.7 million leisure boats, just 5.6 million people, so you can understand it's important. They use their, close nature, and when anything unusual happens, they can spot that, or any threats are coming, they can spot that. So it's really important to keep these areas attractive, also in terms of national safety issues. And my answer to that, how to keep these attractive and how to make sure that there is this resilience, I think that we have to consider psychological resilience here. It means that these people keep operational and functional and productive. And a good quality of life is something we have to underline. It means considering the leisure activities and considering the cultural heritage here. And I mean the tangible and non-tangible cultural values, and the cultural ecosystem services are something that also provide a solid ground for tourism, for example. And this is something, a message to the Commission is here, that we have the sustainability pillars. And then when we talk about the social sustainability, I would like to add socio-cultural sustainability. It doesn't take anything away, but it adds a lot. So socio-cultural is my message. And just to sum up, 3 points. What I wanted to tell you is that first, it's important to have an approach that is integrating the marine and coastal areas and have a holistic systems approach. And you have to support the stakeholders' ownership towards the end product. And this means the active stakeholder collaboration, multi-level governance, and valuing the local knowledge. And it means the fixed funding for implementation, because we are lacking that in Finland, and it's a challenge that how stakeholders will implement the strategy. And content-wise, keep in mind not only the evident ones, the economic issues, blue economy issues, or environmental conservation and restoration issues, but keep in mind the social and psychological resilience. Thank you.
Okay, Marie, thank you very much. Listen, what I wanted to say was that we're also wanting to get your views as part of this. So we've heard from 2 speakers so far, Isabel, Marie. But what do you think? What are your priorities? What should be kept top of the list for the European Union when it comes to the strategy? Slido, phones up, please. Pretend that I'm Elton John, you're at a concert, you're taking photos of the stage. QR code, and we'll have questions coming up. What should be the main element for the EU strategy for coastal communities to tackle? This is a word cloud, so 1, 2, 3 words if you must. I think if you absolutely can't get it in one word, you can add a couple. Local people. Local people. I'm going to ask Marie actually to respond to some of these words. Marie, if you agree, just to give your interpretation. I don't know if she's taken that on board. Contribution. Forget. Is that a word alone? Difficult without the context. Local people right in the front. Climate resilience. Action. Social engagement. Tame mass tourism. I love that. It's like the lion that you need to tame. Contributions, observation, funding, safety. This is great for our panel to get some of the indications of what you're all thinking in the audience. Sustainable fisheries, of course, regeneration, people, just simply people. Skills, the local community. The main element should be part of the EU strategy. Climate resilience, coming there right at the top in the middle. Local people and job creation. Job creation. And we talked about that on day 1 of European Ocean Days with the blue economy, the skills needed. Symbiotic approaches, empowerment, the right to stay, which came up also in the previous panel. Let's go to the next one. We've got local people and climate resilience. Keep these words in mind. What is the main challenge for coastal territories? What's the main challenge? A word or 2 or 3 that encapsulates that for you. It's the funding. That'll be good news for Roberto from the European Investment Bank. He'll answer some of the concerns about that, some of the challenges, Roberto. Erosion came up top. Climate change. Aging. I think we heard a figure earlier in the week. I think it was 40% of the workforce for fishers due to retire. I think it was 40%. Sea level rise, overregulation, global warming, administrative literacy, that's an interesting one. Understanding what's on offer, perhaps, what we can do together. Second homes, and capital letters with an exclamation mark. Creative ways to make sure that our voices are heard. So climate change, the sea level rise, funding, erosion, coming up as some of the key words. And don't forget, a lot of these will be printed out. A lot of these word clouds will be printed out, and they'll be in the hands of those who matter at the European Commission. So this is great to have these insights from this audience. I saw one there that was interesting, that they keep moving, that's the thing. So when you start to read them, they move. Right to stay was interesting there. Hold the young people. And that was a key message this morning from Javier Garat, was youth engagement. The next question. What's the major potential of coastal communities for the European Union? What can coastal communities offer? I think that should be knowledge at the very beginning. We make allowances, it's all live, isn't it? Live as we speak. Authenticity as well. Community, sustainability, protection. Knowledge retyped, that's great, right there in the middle. Quality of life, we just heard that from Marie. Regeneration, port connectivity. One health, the holistic approach perhaps. Resilience, a key word highlighted here. Collaboration near the center as well. Protection. Ownership, that needs a little bit of context perhaps. Values as well. Culture as well, cultural heritage coming into things. Good living, Marie talked about that as well. Leisure. So great, thank you very much for all of these words. Knowledge and resilience. Local knowledge, local expertise perhaps comes into this as well. Not forgetting that the locals sometimes have the answers more than those who are not actually in those places. And I think we have one more question, don't we? Do we have another question? Yes. In your view, what is the most urgent need for the EU coastal communities? One ocean. Some people are typing very fast. Very impressive. I'd be taking at least 5 minutes. Depends on how big our thumbs are. Being heard. And this is what this is all about, with the Slido, being heard. Funding coming out there on top. One ocean, being heard. No borders and oceans. Funding. Roberto, we're going to be asking you some tough questions. I love the sun, little sun coming through there as well. Support, connectivity, autonomy, sustainability, support fishers, stop over-regulation, climate preparedness. I'm focusing mostly on the words that are coming near the middle because these are the top words. So funding, being heard. I love that as our middle word. Seamus with a heart. Hand up, that person. Free tip, a free trip for two to New Zealand or a cake during the coffee break. Thank you so much. That's lovely. I'm glad that's there, and don't hesitate to take a photo of that. I'm not sure that it's related to coastal communities. I am often on the coast, but thank you very much. Let's go to Monica. Keeping all of this in mind, and was that the last question? Was there another one? Just remind me if I'm... No, that was the last question, but it's great to have your input into the panel. Monica, maybe I don't know if you wanted to react to what we've seen so far. What word would have you put in the middle, Monica, first of all? Maybe we can ask that question first of all.
Hello, hi, thank you. Well, I'd actually noted down 4 words in particular that are particularly relevant to community-led local development and what I will talk about, and that's people, jobs, knowledge, and resilience.
Great, and you're a good student making notes and taking down words. I'll actually ask all of you to actually give your keyword as well and what stood out for you in what we saw there on the screen. So Monica, yes, so you're supporting the community-led local development, so with regards to DG Mare. Maybe some examples, what could you share with us, advice? People in the audience who are looking at how all of this can work in practice, in fact, Monica.
Thank you, thank you. So yes, I am going to speak a little bit about some of the lessons or particularly some of the results of what community-led local development is bringing to coastal communities. Just for those of you who don't know what CLLD is, community-led local development, it's funded by most of the European structural funds, and in particular, in our case, by the European Maritime Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, the MFAF, through local action groups that receive a budget to fund local projects based on a local development strategy that they draw up for their area in a bottom-up participative way. And with that money, they will take the decision on what is funded in their coastal community. So here we're talking about, in the last programming period, we're talking about more than 14,000 different local projects that were funded. So I know we've been asked for examples, but I'm not going to go into specific examples, but more the types of projects that were funded under and are continuing to be funded under CLLD. And in particular, you wanted to know about how CLLD can help diversify coastal communities. So that is often a big part of these local development strategies, is how to diversify our economies. Not only diversify our economies, but make them more resilient. So here, the target audience that they're usually starting with are the fishing and aquaculture communities. So that's very much the cornerstone of their work and of the economies, given all the knock-on or the auxiliary activities that are linked with that fishing or aquaculture heritage and identity of a lot of these coastal areas. So, of course, diversifying the sector in itself is a starting point. And here we have examples, numerous examples of diversifying catches, diversifying the types of products that are being developed, diversifying the way local communities or fishers are accessing markets, and a lot of work around as well, strengthening local supply chains as one of the markets. Very often, depending on the country, fish is landed and then shipped off to other areas, and the local community doesn't even have access to those products in some countries. So again, strengthening from the bottom your economy. Then we have a lot of examples of course, diversifying the blue economy generally. So branching into new marine and coastal activities, quite a few based on seaweed, for example. Seaweed for a range of different uses, starting with more basic things like compost, and moving up to food products, pharmaceutical products, and even packaging as a replacement for plastic for food products. And that in itself, a lot of these activities that are supported, they bring jobs, they bring activities, they also bring innovation and skilled jobs. So it's that knowledge as well was another word that came out, and that's being developed by these bottom-up funded projects. Quickly to move on to a couple of other areas, there's the tourism, moving away from this mass tourism and really building on your local resources, nature-based tourism, experience-based tourism, cultural tourism as well, heritage, and that again helps really diversify the types of activities happening. A lot of work around byproducts as well, byproducts from different economic sectors, including fisheries, but not only, but looking at new uses for shells, waste shells, plastic, etc. I could go into these for hours, but I'll try not. And then finally, apart from the actual activities happening, there's also the projects, and these are very important because they're structuring, setting up clusters, setting up incubators for coastal startups, which bring in young people, and networks. For example, in Denmark, the Bornholm flag brought local different businesses together in a network to service the offshore wind industry. So moving with the times, not trying to just defend status quo, but bringing local people along with developments that are happening. You want me to stop?
Okay, no, Monica, that's great because it ties in with what we've been hearing also in the first panel. Making sure that everybody's voice is heard, but great to have some of those examples. I'll come back to you in a moment, actually, your top tips on how do we get more participation, because youth engagement is a big one. In the first panel, really making sure that all voices are there. We saw the others in this room. It's a big question, isn't it? The diversity of all the different voices. So, Monica, we'll come back to you in a moment, just how do we increase that participation, making sure that is happening. Funding, finance. We can't not have somebody on the panel when it comes to that question of money. Roberto, really it's about talking about the challenges, isn't it? People are facing challenges when it comes to funding. What are you noticing on your side when it comes to the challenges that people are facing? Maybe offering solutions, looking at how we can find solutions to these very, very complex problems.
Thank you very much, Seamus. And I wanted to say thanks also to the organizer, DG Mare, with which we work very closely from the European Investment Bank side. I think it's an important partnership, and we like to engage actually with all the others, as you mentioned. We would like to embrace that diversity. So, as Charlina said at the beginning, it's not the end, is a beginning of something new that happens after this conference when we can liaise with you. From our side, I think it's important to picture also where these kind of challenges that I want to share come from an institution that invests 100 billion euros in 2025, of which 57 million in climate action and environmental sustainability, so mitigation, adaptation, and the 4 environmental objectives of the taxonomy. And as a track record, which is quite important in terms of blue economy, we are one of the leading, I would say the leading IFI in blue economy investment with 10.7 billion in the last 5 years. So these challenges, these kind of lessons that I share come from the observation of the portfolio and the work done on adaptation and coastal protection. The first one is, I would say, a common challenge to adaptation finance in general, which is how to make as much as possible attractive to investors, to private capital, investing in climate adaptation vis-à-vis, let's say, more appealing operations in the climate mitigation space in terms of revenue making, clearer visibility of that aspect. So the first point is the perceived financial risk really has an impact on the attractiveness of this kind of public good interventions. The second point, I think extremely important, is the risk ownership and governance, which is very complicated for people that have, like me, sometimes a background in comparative constitutional systems and know how complicated is the decision-making process. At a certain point, I saw in the slides lack of inclusion in decision-making, which was tiny, but it's an important point that is raised. And I think it's an important point also to see the trade-off between meaningful consultation, but at the same time, predictable procedures. Capacity, increasing the capacity of local stakeholders actually to see, to map the milestone that they have to take from zero to project implementation, which is not always, should be given for granted. Huh? And we come to the third point, which is the capacity among national, regional, and local authorities. If the objective was just to preach the converted, I think it would be a very easy task to finance adaptation and the support, let's say, the resilience of our coast. But we have to deal with a very diverse, again, let's embrace this diversity, and we need to tailor. So I think the coastal community strategies is a great opportunity to tackle this aspect of empowerment of communities that I've seen many times referred to and that we ourselves have experienced. Just to give you a concrete example, because otherwise it remains very theoretic. In one case, an operation framework loan, 97 million to the Romanian Water Authority to regenerate, so sand, of course, cliffs, revetments, and all the package of this kind of deployment of nature-based solutions, thanks to the work done by JASPERS, that you may know as this joint European Commission and EIB initiative to support EU member states authorities in the deployment of EU funds that helped actually the Romanian authorities to deploy this 700 million investment in coastal protection that had an important impact. So you see the link with capacity and leading also the client towards, let's say, an empowerment.
Okay, Roberto, and I'll come back to you later because I've been promising people in the audience, those who are looking for enablers, information about enablers, information about pathways. We talk often about what is the pathway towards getting on board with all of this in terms of funding and investing and financing. So we'll get your tips on that as well. Let's go to Agia, because marine spatial planning is something we talk about a lot when it comes to coastal communities. We know that you're doing a lot of work on that, particularly about the different uses when it comes to the blue economy in the same place. Agia, what should we be thinking about when it comes to coastal communities in this kind of planning, and also the messages that will be taken on board at the European Commission level? Agia, your experience.
Hello, and thank you very much for this opportunity to be here and to have to engage in this dialogue. And yes, I'm representing VASAB, and first of all, I think we need a little bit to explain what does it really mean. Vision and strategies around the Baltic Sea. This is something we have heard, that we need visions. We need to understand where we are going, what we need to reach, what is desirable future. We want to be aware, and what is our task in all this concept. And Baltic Sea region countries is cooperating on spatial planning to provide vision long-term vision for the Baltic Sea. And those countries are Lithuania, Poland, Germany, Finland, Sweden, Estonia, and Latvia. And we are cooperating, these countries are cooperating since 1992, so long experience. And we saw that we can share some lessons from this cooperation, but also we cooperate very much with HELCOM. So it's another intergovernmental organization that cooperates to protect the Baltic Sea together. So there is no Baltic Sea country, but there are really motivated countries that works together. And I'm glad to share this perspective, and if I simplify our experience into one sentence, it would be this: if we want strong coastal communities, we need strong spatial planning systems at every level, because we need to understand where decisions is taken, and decisions are taken in governance levels. And if we want to impact those decisions, we need to understand how to be engaged in those structures where the decisions are being are taken. And yes, in our region we have learned something very practical that really, and I agree with previous opinions that coastal communities cannot just be consulted. They need to be involved from the very beginning. Whatever we plan at sea, offshore wind, aquaculture, shipping routes eventually lands on the coast. And we all know that's where infrastructure is built, jobs are created or lost, and landscape changes, and public acceptance is shaped. And if municipalities are brought in too late or lack the capacity to engage properly, planning becomes reactive rather than strategic. And as I mentioned, we are offering a vision, something very valuable that integrate all the policies, starting from European Union policies to very local. So we are offering really actions that can help, that is guiding also local communities. But if local actors are not aware of these policies, they are not, so we don't reach real impact. So yeah, this is something also we are thinking. Today we are talking about the new strategy. Where are communities? Are they, do they have enough voice? But yes, local authorities really frequently struggle to align resources, priorities, and spatial planning. And municipalities with strong planning, and it's from our experience, so those who are engaged in this macro-regional, multi-level, and all this kind of cooperation, they are more successful and they are more collaborative. So municipalities also lack access to the same data as national authorities, and it's very important to provide evidences for local actors about the climate change. So to bring awareness, we need to provide data, we need to provide evidence, we need to, so tools actually to manage impact, and without being part of early decisions, it's really, we are struggling. And from our experience at WASAB, strengthening coastal communities means strengthening their planning capacities, and that was already mentioned here, and I'm very happy. And just to conclude, so early involvement in maritime spatial planning means communities and municipalities must be shape decisions from the start. They need better access to shared data and maps. This allows local planners to make informed decisions, coordinate actions, and communicate effectively to raise awareness, including about the climate change. And what is very important, it also brings less space for populism. And of course, clear coordination mechanism connecting national, subnational, and local authorities while empowering self-organized civil society. What we need organized civil society, strong civil society that can engage in those decision-making processes. And also investment in professional planning competence means to ensure municipalities can actively participate and influence outcomes. Because when the local level is weak, the entire planning system is weaker. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, interesting about the consultation process, because what does that look like? Is it just turning up with people midway through the process, or are they actually partners at the very beginning? I want to go back to Isabel and to Marie just to see if you wanted to add, respond to anything we've been hearing, also respond to some of the words we've seen on the screen. Isabel, maybe a bit more detail about what you would be saying about the European Union strategy, what needs to be included. Isabel.
Yes, I agree that maritime spatial planning will be one of the key enablers, for this just transition for coastal communities. But maritime spatial planning, as I already mentioned, that to be closely linked with also land planning, and this is a big challenge, honestly. This is the first thing. Second is, to address climate adaptation, risk management. This is really growing concern regarding the impact of coastal erosion, sea level rise. We have developed in France specific actions on this, and we are just launched a pilot project to relocate a complete village in one of our outermost regions regarding coastal erosion and sea level rise. So, and of course, funding is key because we are very concerned that the threat is accelerating. Because at the beginning, we thought that we will have a bit of time, but at the end, we have an acceleration of the climate change and the impact. And third thing is about involvement of local communities. Our strategy and local MSP documents, they are, of course, shaped and implemented with very close involvement of local communities. This bottom-up approach is key. Ownership, I heard about ownership. And I have a small house in a very teeny island in Brittany. And so 200 people live in the island, so it's very small. There is, of course, no industry, and I was extremely surprised when I arrived some years ago that when you leave people, free, about, their action, they could be absolutely creative. And I was absolutely stunned. Just an example, we do not want to have cars on our island, but of course you have, people that they cannot, there are some disabilities and so on. So how we can address the point? Well, at the end, the community decided to offer carpooling, so the auto-partage for the local community. This is quite simple solution, but at the end, not very expensive and really adapted, to the current situation regarding, of course, energy transition. So we really need to free the local communities, and and on funding, the last point, that we know that today funding, there is money, but the rules to access the money, the funding, they are overall complex for very small communities. So apart the funding as such, they really need to reflect on how we can access the funding for local projects.
Okay, Isabel, thanks very much. And it's great to visualize these examples and concrete examples on the ground. So great for that. Incredible about that village, by the way. Marie, let's come back to you. So you can react to what you've heard so far, also what we saw from the audience with Slido, and also anything else that you think we should be bringing to the table?
Well, I don't have a straight mind right now, but after watching the questions and the word clouds, I would say that 2 years ago, the sustainability would be a word, the biggest word, but nowadays we are talking about the resilience, and we are talking about local level people and their engagement into the processes. We are talking about the economic resilience, mental resilience, climate resilience, social resilience, and also the psychological resilience. And then maybe want to also highlight that the working with the local level, it's really resource demanding, and if we don't have those resources, it might be so that we overlook their expertise. And then, for example, in Finland, we have 4 established stakeholder networks that we use in maritime spatial planning and in implementing coastal strategy. We have this interministerial group in the national level, then we have sectoral representatives in one group, then we have a research group, 16 universities and applied sciences providing research to the MSP and coastal strategy. And then we have this open to anyone network, stakeholder networks. But it's really a challenge to how to find those people, because maritime spatial planning is not so sexy, so to say, that the media is not so interested in what's happening, but the planning is seen as more as an hindering of the development and the blue economy rather than that boosting it and promoting it. And it's really hard to get your saying in the public media and how to make sure that the locals know that they have this possibility to join. But in Finland, we are in a lucky position because the maritime spatial planning is carried out in a regional level, and these regional councils, they have a very close connection to the local level, to the municipalities, to the stakeholders. And we have put a lot of efforts, for example, to engage the local level fishers. And that is one reason of highlighting the cultural heritage, because this is one issue that is not just past, but also present cultural heritage, to have these small-scale coastal fishermen. And then, for example, in Finland, we are in a situation where we are losing the language that is attached to the fishing, small-scale fishing. And we actually have to take very active actions to make sure that we are not losing that cultural heritage. And just as an example, that it takes a lot of efforts, and we have established networks, but still it's a challenge. But it's good to be so that we mention and keep this, keep this resilience and keep this local level alive in a way in our speeches, not to lose them at any point.
Okay, you talk about things not being that sexy, and it's true that earlier in the week we used the word storytelling. Which is visualization, is making things memorable, complex concepts memorable and accessible to a wider public. So absolutely, absolutely. I want to stay regional before we come finally to Monica and to Roberto for their advice on pathways, also how we can improve participation. But Eguia, and we heard from France, and we also heard from Marie about the specifics, what's happening on the ground for the locals. And when we look at this strategy, it's a European Union level strategy, but I imagine even for you, when it comes to the Baltic Sea, we have specificities that we need to think about, and that we need to make sure that people have that chance later to make sure that we're not just covering everything in the same way. Eguia.
From the Baltic Sea perspective, yes, of course, we agree that regional specificities, it's a hard word, absolutely matters. The Baltic Sea is almost closed sea. It's shallow, it's ecologically fragile, it's very intensively used, and what one country decides immediately affects its neighbors. And at the same time, offshore renewable energy is expanding rapidly, and we also face growing security considerations. This contribution, or not contribution, but combination makes cross-border cooperation essential for us. But we fully recognize that other sea basins face different realities. whether it's stronger ocean dynamics, tourism pressure, we already heard about that, or different, for example, geopolitical context, European Union strategy should not be implemented in the same way, exactly in the same way everywhere. It's absolutely, we agree with this. But this doesn't mean fragmentation. We see it as, let's say, sea-level approach. At European Union level, there should be clear common principles, and it's ecosystem-based planning, climate neutrality, biodiversity protection, and also meaningful participation. I think we already agree on this. And of course, data compatibility. For us, it's something also in the Baltic Sea we are working very much. We have to understand that to make common visions, make common maps, we need compatible data. And data comes from the countries, from local stakeholders. At sea basin level, there is a need to be coordination on cumulative impact. So we all add impact with our activities on the sea, but someone needs to measure the cumulative impact to decide on the next activities, and also on offshore energy development, also coordination on environmental thresholds. What is the limit we can let in new activities, but also increasingly on resilience and security aspects. So what is very important as well, to left space for planning innovations, for example, such as multi-use, to promote blue economy collaboration, so collaboration between sectors, and efficient use of marine space. And also someone told today that there is very much important diversification of the blue sector, so this innovation aspect must be kept in mind. But at national, subnational and local levels, there must be strong implementation capacity, integration between land and sea, planning, long-term spatial visions, and real stakeholder engagement. And again, this comes back to the same point. Without strong spatial planning systems at all levels, strategy for coastal communities will remain a policy document, not a transformation tool.
Okay, nice final thought. Thanks very much, Egiya. People taking notes as we speak, I think, a lot of these phrases and words we're using. Roberto, the financing perspective, very important for many people in the room. We talked about enablers. People want to know more about that, and also pathways. And I get approached, and I'm not the person who can help with the financing, but you are, possibly. And also, how can they be more attractive to private investors, et cetera, and getting funding elsewhere? So enablers and pathways.
Yeah. Following the same challenges that I mentioned before, although the discussion keeps on inspiring me on many, many grounds, now that you spoke about ocean observation and the importance of data, but the importance of data is one of the, let's say, enablers that we see. There are already, I mean, I will not advertise the work we've been doing, for instance, with Copernicus, but when I speak to experts in the blue economy space, I also hear that we still need to, let's say, with the member states have to invest more in in-situ monitoring in Europe, for instance. And one of the points that I wanted to make in terms of enablers is that there exist already in the market tools that help us debunking this perceived financial risk and measure, monetize the cost of inaction, identify, therefore, let's say, the impact. And it's what happened in the Romania case that I mentioned before. When you measure that you are actually avoiding 17 million euros damages per year in terms of annual risk, you have a metric that is very important in terms of decision to finance. And the other point is that we need to help, actually, those that have to finance, but also the promoters in identifying those soft and hard adaptation measures that, have a better return on investment. Because that's the second point I wanted to make. When I mentioned the challenges, I didn't finish, and I stayed, let's say, in a rather I would say, still present, but very much past mindset, which is this is a public goods business, this is run by grants. Okay? That mentality is completely shifting in the complex geopolitical context in which we live, and where we need to find concessionality somewhere else than just in the support of the state and public states entities. So in that sense, I think building new ideas, I heard about payment for ecosystem services, for instance, during the discussion, carbon credits, nature credits, the use that we see, let's say the market is already evolving in some geographies in Europe towards dedicated vehicles, or structured finance that really it's important we embed in our systems. And the third, I would say, enabler in my view, and a very important one because of what we just said, this capacity that I was mentioning is not just technical capacity, it's also financial literacy. Because moving from a grant, let's say, based model to more complex and creative also sometimes a structure requires that skills that not necessarily are available at sub-sovereign local level. That's why I think one of the most, I mean, we have seen with our 30 billion targets for 2030 in adaptation finance, and the work we've done with the Commission under the InvestEU, and in particular through Adapt Plus, the platform to support counterparties in actually scaling up finance in adaptation. We saw that it's extremely important, but my lesson actually in terms of enabler is that sometimes we have to move from bilateral on-demand advisory models, and I'm not talking about the IB, but I'm talking in general, and I see the value added of initiatives where we really build a community of knowledge and practice, and we can have, we can really go beyond that project fragmentation issues that we have, that lack of capacity, if we manage to create that kind of connection among the regions and the local authorities and the coastal communities.
Okay, Roberto, thanks very much. Aguilla mentioned before about making sure that people are involved in the consultation right from the beginning, so perhaps partnerships. I'm very pleased to finish with Monica on this question about participation in the process, because it was one of the key words and one of the last word clouds, being heard. So Monica, you mentioned a couple of examples of getting people together. You mentioned workshops, etc. What would be your main message on this point, making sure that there is participation, that we're encouraging people to find this passion, to find the interest, this interaction between all of those involved right across the different sectors?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, being heard, we've heard, giving a voice to coastal communities, we've heard. I would go further. I think it's not just about voice, it's getting coastal communities to do things together. Because strategies is great, but it has the risk of staying on the paper. You actually have to do things together. And from having followed the local action groups for quite a long time and community-led initiatives, it's that action that actually solidifies those ideas and the strategies and puts them into practice. To give a little example, marine protected areas. Everybody agrees these are, well, not everybody, lots of people agree these are good things. They can increase fish stocks, they can help your tourism industry, they can also help the fishers. But very often, these strategies are developed, marine protected areas set up, and life goes on as usual. One of the local action groups in Spain thought, no, we're going to take a little bit of money, we're going to fund a fisher for the summer period where we have a lot of poaching and illegal fishing going on in this marine protected area. We're going to pay a fisher his normal salary. Instead of fishing, he's going to patrol the marine protected area for 3 months. With that collaboration between somebody on the ground who actually lives in the area and works in that area with the port authorities who otherwise would do spot controls once a day and then people stop their poaching and carry on half an hour later. Poaching stopped because he's there all the time. He knows the people. He knows who can be there, who can't be there. He'll ring the port authorities. They will come. That sort of approach where giving a little bit of money to actually put things into practice, I think would be my main message. The action together helps people develop trust, helps people know each other, helps people understand the other interests that are at play. We do have to share the marine and coastal space, but it's only by actually knowing, building relationships, and actually finding we quite like some of our competitors or neighbors or whatever, that we can find common interests and change how we work. And that change in mentality, to change things, big changes are needed. Nobody likes to change. But that's, for me, the participation is a way not only for people to be heard, but to actually play an active role in making things change. And for that, you need funding. It can be small-scale funding like community local development, or larger pots of money to put in place bigger changes. But, I mean, I could go on, but in a nutshell, for me, it's action, common action, participation together, building trust, and doing things.
Great, nice message at the end. So not just the talking, but also doing something. Not just the talking, but the action. So thank you all very much. A warm round of applause for our panel. Thank you very much. What a nice panel to have at the end of European Ocean Days. I was going to say it's a week. Well, it is a week. European Ocean Days. Great to have all of your thoughts as we round off this event. Please feel free to take your seats. And we're going to have some closing remarks to really wrap up this session, but also to wrap up the week, European Ocean Days 2026. And I'd like to call to the stage, please, Kęstutis Sadauskas, Deputy Director General at DG Mare. Thank you very much, Kęstutis. A warm round of applause, please.
So, hello again. As this session closes in together with all the Ocean Days, there are several takeaways, commitments, and step forwards that we can probably share all together. Well, first of all, on this session on the coastal communities, it is one of the 6 priorities of the European Ocean Pact. And as Charlina referred to in the opening part, we acknowledge the crucial role that coastal communities play in European integration and in European ocean-related policies. Villages, towns, cities, regions, they all play an indispensable part in deploying the different strands of an ocean pact. On the other hand, these areas encompass enormous potential as a backbone of European sustainable and competitive blue economy. From maritime transport and industrial hubs that connect us with the rest of the world, to suppliers of healthy and sustainable aquatic food, and the pioneers of the blue technology innovation and marine renewable energy towards developing new competitive business models while contributing to nature restoration. All that is really about these communities. But they are also facing numerous challenges, as we know: special vulnerability to the effects of climate change, insufficient diversification of economic activities, complications with connectivity, and the effects of a critically managed tourism or a worsening security situation on our borders, and the heavy pressures on the marine environment are just a few of the difficulties that they need to overcome. And of course, it's a lot of people. Let's just recall ourselves that nearly 100 million people, EU citizens, are based in coastal communities, from port cities to rural and remote coastal areas. And that's why the Ocean Pact and all the dialogues which have taken place here these days are so relevant. The right to stay is essential to ensure quality jobs in vibrant communities which sustain healthy and secure littoral environment. Coastal communities deserve to unlock investments and blue finance towards better competitiveness and towards economic health of these territories. Ocean observation, research, and innovation projects that result in support of sustainable management of the flourishing marine ecosystems will also help their population. This is the reason behind European Commission's intention to create a coordinated approach to support these territories and their population through a communication on the strategy on coastal communities. And it will be complementary to the tailored assistance to islands expected in another parallel strategy to be adopted at the same time under the Cypriot presidency, as indicated by our colleague from DG Regio, Hugo Sobral. Furthermore, these two will also accompany the dedicated initiative to be published earlier, still this spring, for the 9 EU outermost regions, which are fully European Union territories with a particular status. We have heard the views from members of the European Union's advisory bodies, ECOSOC and Committee of Regions, and from the representatives of sea basins, which are the regional cooperation frameworks with a strong component of soft diplomacy between local authorities and also with non-EU countries. Today, we have also heard suggestions from national and regional strategies reflecting maritime spatial planning as a tool for balanced long-term growth of coastal areas, and the position of the participatory networks of municipalities and local stakeholders, as well as contribution of financial institutions. As we are preparing the communication, let me invite you again to submit your propositions, your ideas, suggestions to the call for evidence on the strategy for the coastal communities. This call is open until 22nd of March. Don't miss that chance. We want your ideas, best practices, initiatives, projects that could be inspiring and could be replicated elsewhere. Let me recap 3 key objectives that will guide our work. One is coastal resilience, as littoral communities are often particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, such as sea level rise, erosion, extreme weather events like floods. Relying as much as possible in nature-based solutions will be most suitable approach. Secondly, the diversification of the blue economy, which is essential for the economic sustainability of coastal communities. For too long, many of these territories have relied heavily on single sector or industry like fishing or tourism. By expanding blue economy with regenerative solutions, we can create new opportunities for better jobs, and we can unlock new potential for coastal communities to create more balanced and stronger economic base. And third, prioritizing social aspect and focusing on young population and skills, because that's how we can ensure that coastal communities remain vibrant, inclusive, and prosperous for generations to come. So consequently, your opinions are a precious source for us, which will help shape this initiative according to your needs. And indeed, as we have come to the end, not only of this session, but also of the entire week, let me, well, first of all, express my big gratitude and rejoice about what we have done. The whole thing started here on Monday at 9 o'clock with the presence of European Commission's president here announcing a landmark flagship initiative of the ocean observation called now Ocean Eye. But all throughout the week, we've had numerous exchanges in several places, sometimes juggling between this place, Charlemagne, National Library, and of course, for those who are online, also probably benefiting from opening multiple screens and following several sessions at the same time. But we've discussed all the things that Ocean Pact is all about. In fact, Ocean Pact does offer that discipline of creativity, discipline of reflection with the 6 priorities. We've gone through ocean research, ocean knowledge, to funding and finance, from maritime security to ocean diplomacy, from ocean literacy to the future of the fisheries and aquaculture for 2040, and of course coastal communities, just as we've done today. So all the topics that are in the Ocean Pact, they've been covered, and the knowledge that we have gathered here and we have shared with each other is of a really deep value. But probably most important is that we now see that we have a vibrant ocean community. I could probably call it an ocean family that has gathered here. And well, we know each other, but there are new faces who have joined us over this 5 days. And for me, that's the best sign that we do care about the ocean and that we can indeed unite under the European flag for the benefit of the ocean and all our policies. I don't remember ever that we've had 5 straight full days talking about the ocean policies, not getting tired, not getting exhausted, and not exhausting the topic itself. I think it's quite unprecedented, which attests also to the fact that now ocean is firmly and resolutely highly on the political agenda. That's probably the best guarantee that all our blue agenda will be there for a long time. So big, big thanks to you. And of course, not least, big thanks to our indefatigable moderator, Seamus. I haven't seen anybody who's done such a thing for 5 straight days, keeping a sharp, sane mind at the same time, not losing attention and looking fresh just as if he has started. So really, Seamus, big thanks for doing it. You are fantastic here. So
thank you very
with
much.
this, we are a family and we'll be seeing each other very soon, at the latest, hopefully in Cyprus, in Limassol, in Maritime Days, but probably in the run-up to that and right after that in many other occasions. Ocean really matters, and we are very, very happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kestutis, thank you very much. I always say that if you have energy and resilience on the stage, it's always thanks to the audience. It's always because I'm absorbing your energy, your passion, your enthusiasm as well. So thank you all very much. It's also time to say thank you to all of the organizers and all of those behind the scenes. So a special thanks to the team at DG Mare for organizing this event. It's not easy, 5 days of panels and all of the activities, and not just here, but also at Charlemagne, also at the library here in Brussels. So a big round of applause for the DG Mare team. It's also made my job much easier as well, because there's been a lot of organization behind the scenes, etc. Also to the organizers of the event, and it's VO Europe. The team is known as VO Europe. So a big round of applause for them. Thank you very much. I won't mention the names, but Elitza, Robin, Zoe, they were right behind me, making sure that I was on time, that I kept things smooth, so a lot of it is thanks to them as well. Also the technical team, the technical staff with the microphones, making sure that the microphones are working, that when I stand here it works. Very sorry about the microphone that fell off the table there, hopefully it's not broken. But in the control room, big round of applause for all of those who have been responsible for that. And finally, also, it's time for lunch, and I think we can all agree the food has been fantastic. And it's true that on day one, we had a Slido saying, what's your interest in coming here? And one of the options was the food. And I think we did have like about 4% of people who said they were here for the food and the ambiance, which is fine because it's great food. So a special thanks to the Sparks team. Hopefully they can hear us, or we'll pass on the message. But to all of the assistants as well, those who have been helping with the microphones. It's been great to see your smiles in the morning as well. That helps me as well, you know, to remain calm and enthusiastic, their smiles. Also the security team that's been seamless coming into the event as well. So a special thanks to the Sparks team. Thank you very much. A warm round of applause. And just finally, don't forget, during lunch, you also have the chance, the last chance, to go and take a look at the exhibitions. So we have DTO, of course, which is beside us, and we also had the audio and VR experiences, and you can still do that today. So now it's time for lunch. Also, a special thanks to people who are watching us on the live stream. Because this is recorded, so you can re-watch a lot of this. But a big round of applause to those who have stayed attentive at home or in the office as well online. Thank you very much. And maybe I can just finish with a final word. I said at the start of the week, you are all in my big boat. You are passengers on my boat. I was the skipper. I'm very sad to say this is the last port of call. You'll all be disembarking for a great lunch. But I look forward to seeing you again. I think one of the key messages for me out of all of this actually came in the last panel, being heard. And what I tell people when I'm doing conferences or taking communication workshops, for example, we want to be heard, but just make sure that you are heard. It's our responsibility to be heard. It's not just those who want to be listening to us. So make sure that the talking, we're actually doing something, we're taking action on the ground, and we had that message, and I was very pleased to finish with that. So thank you very much. Keep the dialogue going, keep the enthusiasm, and keep the passion. Thank you all very much.